On behalf of all this assembly, on behalf of the Reform movement, and really on behalf of the Jewish people, I am pleased to present you with the Morris Eisendrath Bearer of Light Award, Rabbi Dick Hirsch.
Thank you very much, Eric. Ani asir todah. I am really grateful to you, the leaders of the Union for Reform Judaism, for this award. And to you, Eric, dear friend and respected colleague, who is a leader of our movement, is the most articulate spokesman for the vested interests and the cherished values of all American Jewry. I'm going to give Eric an award in behalf of the World Union at lunch, and Eric, I'm going to get even with you. And to you, Natan Sharansky, dear friend, dramatic symbol of our people's indomitable struggle for creative Jewish identity, for your presence here and for your heartfelt words. In the film which you were supposed to have seen, there's a picture of Maurice Eisendrath installing me as the regional director of the Union in Chicago and the Great Lakes area. That was in 1956, 55 years ago. Since that fortunate day, I have worked in fruitful partnership with countless dedicated lay leadership and professional staff who in reality deserve to earn this tribute together with me. Because of time limitations, I will only mention two respected colleagues who perpetuate the ideals and programs with which I have been associated. Al Vorspan, who just arrived, I see. Hi, Al. Al, who is the eloquent conscience of Reform Judaism, and Rabbi David Saperstein, who has built the RAC into a respected leading American institution in which we take justifiable pride. To be the recipient of the Eisendrath Award is to come full circle for me. Rabbi Eisendrath was a formative influence in the development of Reform Judaism and a role model for courageous, inspired leadership. He was instrumental in the decision to establish the Religious Action Center and to appoint me as the founding director. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. May this award preserve acknowledgement of his leadership and enduring contributions. Friends, for the last half-century, my life has been a tale of two cities, Washington and Jerusalem. Washington, the capital and symbol of democracy for the world. Jerusalem, the capital of the Jewish people and the pulsating heart of Jewish destiny. During this extended period, I have learned a few key lessons, many of which some of which I hereby share with you for your consideration. Lesson number one: diaspora Jewry needs Israel. Israel needs diaspora Jewry. Why does diaspora Jewry need Israel? Whereas in the 19th century and the early 20th century, Jewish immigrants to America were classified as a people on a par with other ethnic immigrant groups. Today, we, their progeny, tend to be identified as a religious group on a par with Protestants and Catholics. But if Jewish identity is contracted to a religion only, or limited to a personalized religious expression without a sense of Jewish peoplehood, we run the risk of being reduced to another American religious sect, Without the closest ties to the Jewish land, Jewish culture, and the Hebrew language, Jewish identity will disintegrate. The Jewish soul cannot flourish without the Jewish body. Without a reformed Jewish presence in force in the state of Israel, Israel would be incomplete, just as we, without Israel, would be unfulfilled. Michael Meyer entitled his definitive book on the history of Reform Judaism, Response to Modernity. We have learned to be integrated into the 20th century in modern society, and yet to retain our distinctiveness. Now, the challenge of this and future generations is how to respond to Jewish peoplehood. That's the real challenge. And that is why I define the transfer of our international headquarters to Jerusalem, the commitment to build a movement in Israel, and to join the table of world Jewry, which Natan Sharansky represents, through affiliation with the Zionist movement and the Jewish Agency for Israel. I define that as the most consequential decision of the 20th century for our movement, because it activated the process of responding to Jewish peoplehood and catapulted us to full and equal partnership in the mission to perpetuate the Jewish people. Why does Israel need the diaspora? If in America a process of religionization is contracting Jewish identity, in Israel a process of nationalization is contracting Jewish identity. Yes, there's assimilation in Israel. Assimilation in Israel leads to what has been defined as post-Zionism, the desire of many for Israel to be a normal state like all other states. The post-Zionists tend to be indifferent to the weakening ties to world Jewry and the Jewish heritage. Now, Reform Judaism potentially has a key role to play in this process. Because of all groups in Jewish life, we are capable of having our feet planted firmly in both worlds, Israel and the diaspora, peoplehood and modernity. Israel desperately needs a strong, viable movement of liberal Judaism in order to counter the benighted trend toward extremism among the ultra-Orthodox and the trend toward right-wing radical religious and political positions among the so-called Zionist Orthodox. And even though the majority of Israeli Jews define themselves as secular, in reality, most of them observe Jewish life cycle events and holidays such as the Passover Seder. So for those in search of meaning and purpose in an enlightened framework, progressive Judaism represents not a rejection, but a reinvigoration of Judaism. That is why our movement is expanding significantly in Israel, and why we are destined to become an increasingly vital factor in Israeli society. Lesson 2. To impact on society, we need not only good ideas and active individuals, we need effective institutions and collective action. As individuals, Jews were always in the forefront of American social justice issues. However, the synagogue as an institution was quiescent and irrelevant. But when we established the Commission on Social Action and the Religious Action Center, we institutionalized Jewish social values and motivated Jews as Jews, and in the name of Judaism and the synagogue, to play key roles in the drama of American democracy. The RAC in Washington has inspired the magnificent work of our Israel Religious Action Center. Similarly, and Eric referred to this in his remarks, individuals like Abba Hillel Silver and Stephen Wise were among the foremost leaders of American Zionism. However, the movement as a movement in their day was non-Zionist and in danger of becoming peripheral to American and to world Jewry. After the Six-Day War, we made institutional commitments, and I stress the institution of the reform movement. We declared that we were no longer content with limiting our actions to resolutions. Instead, we were committed to resolute action. Our mission was not to send a fax, but to create facts. Not to send a special delivery message from afar, but to deliver the message up front, on the ground, through Israeli citizens, active Reform Jews, participating in the effort to create an exemplary society. We committed the movement to build synagogues, education and cultural institutions, schools, camps, youth movements, kibbutzim, settlements in Jerusalem, a center of the college and a cultural education center and headquarters of the World Union and the Israel movement. The Biennial College embarked on a serious program of ordaining young Israeli men and women to serve as rabbis, to grow an indigenous movement. And just last month, we ordained the 73rd Israeli Reform Rabbi. And we established ARTSA, our American Zionist movement, and Artsenu, our international Zionist movement, to Zionize our members. And Zionize is a good word, my friends. And to be a major factor in world Jewry. Lesson 3. When a movement builds institutions, the institutions build the movement. I began working as the executive head of the World Union in 1973. In 1972, the total annual income of the World Union was $78,000. And the World Union International headquarters were located on the 7th floor in a one and a half room office of the Union Building in New York. Few people knew of its existence. I began to sing the song of the Chalutzim, Anu banu artsa livnot li banot ba, Anu banu artsa livnot li banot ba. Not quite Cedar Bakel, but I'm 2 years younger. Anu banu artsa livnot li banot ba. We've come to Israel to build and to be built by her. And I suggest to our leadership that those words should define our aspirations, to build and to be built. And because of our successful efforts in building a movement in Israel, we're able to inspire our leaders to build a vibrant movement in the former Soviet Union, to resuscitate communities which had been called by Elie Wiesel the Jews of silence. My friends, they are silent no more. We have over 40 congregations in the FSU and have erected synagogues in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Minsk, with plans for a new center in Kiev and for others on the drawing boards. The World Union has engaged 6 Russian-speaking rabbis. Our global young adult movement, Netzer Olami, is the largest in the FSU, and over 1,000 youth attend summer camps. We are training leaders to activate more communities. Our movement is contributing to a resurgence of interest in Judaism wherever we go, throughout Eastern Europe and Latin America. In Germany, the movement has been expanded beyond recognition, including the Abraham Geiger College for training rabbis for the continent. And what did we discover? When Jerusalem became our center, influence and inspiration radiated to our worldwide movement and back from the periphery to Israel. And lesson 4, the universalistic and particularistic impulses of Judaism cannot be separated. Indeed, every effort must be made to integrate them more intensely. And to me, it's fascinating that a person like Natan Sharansky, who knew nothing about the American movement, recognized this as the core of my philosophy. I refuse to accept the dichotomy, as defined by most of our Reform thinkers, that Washington is social action, represents universalism, whereas Jerusalem, Zionism, represents particularism. I reject that. For me, The most universalistic task in which I was ever engaged was helping to found our kibbutzim in the Arava, where young people, many of them from American Reformed Jewish homes, have created a remarkable society, a society which is based on the blending of the noblest socioeconomic values of Judaism and democracy. And conversely, for me, the most particularistic activity in which I was ever engaged was working actively with the civil rights groups, with Martin Luther King, President Lyndon Johnson in the White House, Vice President Hubert Humphrey, and a cross-section of national religious and civic leaders to bring to bear the distinctive convictions of Judaism on racial and economic issues. And as was just pointed out by David, the decisive meetings on the civil rights legislation of the 1960s were held in our conference room of the Religious Action Center. So, friends, for me, no geographical borders, no ideological boundaries can divide Jewish minds, Jewish hearts, and Jewish destiny. I have become both weary and wary of Jews who passionately aspire to save the world, but have become indifferent to the sacred task of saving the Jewish people. And my final lesson: Israel is Broadway. The diaspora is off Broadway. After the Six-Day War, in articles and lectures, I stated that we needed that new metaphor to describe the relations between American Jewry and Israel. The old metaphor, Bavel Yerushalayim, Babylon and Jerusalem, which viewed American Jewry and Israel as two equal foci, was no longer relevant, I said. When I made that statement, it raised the hackles of many of my colleagues, and it may raise some of your hackles this morning. Israel is Broadway. The diaspora is off Broadway. What was then an ideological statement by me has today become a demographic reality. The Israeli Jewish population is already larger than the American Jewish population, and demographers project that by the middle of this century, the Israeli Jewish population will number 57% of the world Jewish population. The North American Jewish population will be only 35%, and the rest of the diaspora only 8%. Now, in order for our movement to retain vitality and relevance, we have to be future-oriented. The United States has begun to adjust its economic and political policies to a new world condition, the emergence of China, of India, and other nations as world powers. America is no longer the only world power. So, too, must our American reform movement begin to adjust to the new world Jewish condition. We need to be major actors on the center stage of world Jewry. And I ask one question: can we continue to consider ourselves an authentic world movement if we thrive only in a non-Jewish environment and not in a Jewish environment? Now, I'm fully aware of the stringencies imposed upon our American movement by current economic conditions, and I'm empathetic to it. I spent my life raising money. And then I call to your attention an apt statement in the Talmud, dear friends. And the statement is, even more than the calf needs to suck milk from the mother cow, the mother cow needs to nurse the calf. Not only do our Israel and world movements need the funding from North America, even more relevant, in order for our American movement to have the proper commitment and identity as Jews, it needs to help nurture the Israel and world movements. The Bible calls us an Am Olam, an eternal people, an ancient people, a people of the world. We are worldly Jews. No Jew today can be America firster, if you remember the isolationist, ultranationalist movement before World War II here in America. We cannot be America firsters. Not after the Holocaust. Not after the establishment of the Jewish state. Is Israel an exemplary society? No. But my friends, neither is American society. Does the Israel reality seem far distant from the dream? To be sure. But would the Jewish people be better off today if there were no Jewish state? If we lived only with the dream of the biblical prophets? Has our generation not been blessed by the challenge of wrestling with the reality, like Jacob was forced to wrestle with the angel? And were it not for the reality of Israel, would this generation even be able to sustain the dream? Israel's national anthem is Atikva, the hope. Hope is the key word injected into our vocabulary after the Holocaust. And not only for Jews, but for hundreds of millions of people in the world. For if the Jewish people, the perennial victim of humankind's evil impulse, can return to its land, regain its sovereignty, revivify its language and culture, absorb immigrants from over 70 countries, and we pray, establish peace with its neighbors, is there not tikvah? Is there not hope for all humankind? The prophet Jeremiah summarizes it well. There is hope for your future when your children return to your land. So, my friends, I'm grateful to you, my movement, for enabling me to serve on the cutting edge of the crucial issues confronting America, Israel, and world Jewry. I may have lived in two cities, but I have served one movement, one people, one world. Our rabbinic sages asked, Hezehu Ashir? And they answered, Asameach b'chalko. Who is wealthy? He who is content with his lot. By that definition, I am the wealthiest person in the world. I've been blessed with the most supportive, constructively critical, loving life partner, my Bella. And together we have been blessed with the most dedicated, creative, successful family, all of whom are loyal and learned Jews. I am indebted to them and to this entire movement for enriching and blessing my life.